I'm Daniel, 41 years old, and I thought I had seen every kind of family drama life could throw at me. Divorces, step-families, custody battles, you name it. But nothing prepared me for the wedding that turned into a quiet, calculated disaster. A disaster I didn't cause, but one I walked right into, and eventually walked away from, holding my kids' hands as if I were rescuing them from a fire. The morning of the wedding, I was still feeling proud. I'd paid for the whole thing. The venue, catering, photographer, even the floral arrangements my stepmother insisted needed a touch of luxury. It was for my stepsister, Ava. She was 30, the kind of woman who'd call herself misunderstood, but treat waiters like they were invisible. Still, she was my dad's stepdaughter, and when he passed away 3 years ago, I promised him I'd keep the family together. That's why I said yes when technically my stepmother, Carol, came to me 6 months ago and asked if I'd help make Ava's dream wedding happen. At the time, it didn't feel like a trap. Carol was crying, saying Ava had been through so much, and that this was her fresh start. Her fiancé, Mark, seemed like a decent guy. Quiet, respectful, maybe a little awkward, but polite. So I agreed. I even told Carol, "Don't worry about paying me back. Just let's make sure Ava's happy." I thought it was a good deed, family helping family. Turns out, it was like feeding a wolf and expecting gratitude. Everything was fine up until the week before the wedding. That's when Ava started acting entitled, for lack of a better word. I'd get messages like, "Daniel, I think we should swap the wine selection. Mark's family prefers imported." Or, "Can we change the seating chart? I don't want your kids in the front area. They might make noise during the vows." That one hit me wrong. My kids, Lucy and Evan, are 8 and 6, well-behaved, shy, and the kind of kids who whisper in libraries. Still, I brushed it off. I figured wedding stress makes everyone weird. But then came the rehearsal dinner. It was supposed to be a small event, nothing fancy, just the family's meeting before the big day. Ava arrived late, dressed like she was walking the red carpet, and didn't even look at me when she walked in. Carol followed her, all smiles, pretending nothing was off. Midway through dinner, Ava tapped her glass with a spoon and said, "I just want to thank everyone who helped make this possible, especially Mom and Mark's family, who have been so supportive." Then she stopped. No mention of me. No mention of who actually paid for it. Mark looked uncomfortable, but he didn't say anything. Neither did I. I wasn't going to demand credit like a child, but the omission stung. My wife, Emily, leaned over and whispered, "It's okay. Let her have her moment." I nodded, but that night in the car I said, "You'd think paying for everything might warrant a thank you." Emily just sighed. Some people only see what they want to see. Then came the wedding day. We got to the venue early. It was an old vineyard, beautiful and sprawling, with sunlight pouring through the trees. I remember holding Lucy's hand as we walked toward the entrance, the sound of distant laughter echoing from the bridal suite. But as we reached the gate, I noticed something odd, a sign taped to the entrance. Big, bold letters, "Do not let these children in." Underneath were printed photos of my kids. Actual photos. I froze. For a moment, I thought it was a prank. Maybe some twisted inside joke. But then the security guard, a guy in a crisp black suit, stepped forward and said, "I'm sorry, sir. The bride gave strict instructions." I blinked at him. "Instructions to ban children?" He nodded awkwardly. "Just those children." Emily's jaw dropped. "What?" He looked genuinely uncomfortable. "Sir, I don't want trouble. I just follow orders." I stared at the photos again. They were clearly taken from my Facebook. Lucy in her Halloween costume, Evan at the park. My stomach twisted. Someone had gone out of their way to make this personal. "Let me talk to Ava," I said, my voice shaking. The guard hesitated, then called someone on his earpiece. After a few seconds, Carol appeared. She looked flustered, holding a champagne flute, her hair done up so tight I could almost hear it creak. "Daniel," she said in that performative, sugary tone she used whenever she was about to say something awful, "please don't make a scene. Ava just wants a child-free ceremony. It's her day." I stared at her. Then why didn't she say that from the start? Why specifically ban my kids? She sighed, avoiding my eyes. "They just distract people. You know how Evan fidgets sometimes. Ava's nervous about everything being perfect. Please understand." Emily's voice was shaking now. "You could have told us before we drove an hour here." Carol shrugged helplessly. "You're overreacting." That word, overreacting, made something in me click. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just looked at my kids, then at my wife, and said softly, "Let's go." We turned around and walked back to the car. No scene. No shouting. Just the sound of gravel crunching beneath our shoes. Evan asked, "Dad, did we do something bad?" And my heart nearly broke. "No, buddy," I said. "You didn't do anything wrong." Emily was silent the whole drive home, clutching Lucy's hand. I could feel the weight of it. The humiliation, the disbelief. Part of me wanted to call Ava right then and there, to demand an explanation. But another part of me, the colder, quieter part, said no. Let's see how this plays out. 2 hours later, I was sitting at our kitchen table, stirring my coffee in silence, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. "Daniel," a deep voice said. "This is Richard, Mark's father." I didn't know what to say. Yes." He sighed, heavy and disappointed. "I don't know how to tell you this, but the wedding's off. My son just walked out. He said your stepsister crossed a line." My spoon froze mid-stir. "What do you mean, crossed a line?" There was a pause. "He found out about the sign. And the Facebook photos. Apparently Ava thought it would be funny to make a point about uninvited guests. My son didn't find it funny. For a moment, I just sat there, unable to process it. The wedding I'd paid for, the one that kicked my kids out, was over. And that's when the knock came at the door. I didn't move. I just kept stirring my coffee, the sound of the spoon tapping the cup steady and calm, as Emily looked toward the hallway. "Daniel," she whispered. "Do you think that's—" I smiled faintly. "Let's find out." And when I opened the door, standing there, makeup smudged, hair ruined, dress wrinkled, was Ava herself. She didn't say a word at first, just stood there trembling, her eyes red and furious. "Daniel," she hissed, "what did you say to Mark's father?" And that's where things started to unravel faster than I could have imagined. I stood in the doorway, coffee mug in one hand, Ava in front of me looking like her entire world had collapsed. Her eyes were red, her mascara streaked like someone had dragged a paintbrush down her cheeks, and she was gripping the sides of her dress as if she was holding on to the last bit of dignity she had left. "Ava," I said slowly. "I didn't say anything to Mark's father. He called me." She blinked, confused. He said you told him about the sign. About the pictures. That's why Mark called off the wedding." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the sign you made? The one you taped at the entrance with photos of my kids you pulled off Facebook?" Her lip quivered. "That wasn't supposed to be a big deal, Daniel. It was a joke," I asked quietly. She hesitated, looking down. "More like a message. You always act like you're the perfect one, the one holding everything together. I just wanted to show you that you don't control everything, that you can't just throw money around and expect people to worship you for it." I let out a breath that came out somewhere between disbelief and a laugh. "You think I wanted anyone to worship me? Ava, I paid for your wedding because your mother begged me to. I was trying to do the right thing." She crossed her arms. "And now you've ruined everything. Mark's gone, everyone's gossiping, and Mom's losing her mind. They're saying I humiliated children, my own step-nephew and niece. Do you realize how this makes me look?" That was the first time it hit me how deep her delusion ran. This wasn't embarrassment because she realized she was wrong. It was fury because her image cracked. Emily appeared behind me, holding Lucy on her hip. "You humiliated yourself, Ava," she said sharply. "We didn't do anything to you." Ava's eyes darted to Emily, then to me. "I need you to fix this." I blinked. "Excuse me. You have to tell Mark's father it was all a misunderstanding. Say you overreacted, or that you—" No, my voice came out flat, calm, but final. "I'm not covering for you." She stared at me, stunned. "Daniel, please. Do you know what Evan said in the car?" I interrupted. "He asked if he did something bad. He's 6. He thought he was being punished. You did that to him. You made an innocent kid feel unwanted at an event I paid for." Her face crumpled for half a second, and for a moment I thought she might actually apologize. But instead, she muttered, "You always make everything about you." Emily let out a bitter laugh. "Wow. Unreal." Ava straightened up, wiping her face roughly with her hand. "You'll regret this," she spat. "Mom's already furious. She said she's coming over. Tell her to bring a receipt," I said, closing the door. I thought that would be the end of it. But I should have known better. Carol doesn't go down quietly. Half an hour later, our driveway filled with the sound of tires screeching. I looked through the window and saw her, perfectly pressed dress, pearls around her neck, that expression of righteous fury she wore like a badge. She didn't even knock, just barged in as if the house belonged to her. "Daniel," she barked. "What on earth have you done?" I didn't even bother standing up. "Hi, Carol. Coffee." She froze at my tone. "Don't get smart with me." Ava's in tears. "The guests are leaving. Do you realize what this has done to her reputation?" "Her reputation?" I repeated. "You mean the one she shredded herself?" She was stressed. Carol snapped. "You know how weddings are. And you. Oh, you just had to make a scene." "I didn't make a scene. I left quietly." "You humiliated her." "I humiliated her?" I asked, my voice rising just slightly. "She put a sign with photos of my kids telling people to keep them out." "Who does that, Carol?" She hesitated, then said something that almost made me laugh from sheer disbelief. "Maybe she overdid it, but you should have known better than to bring them. Weddings are for adults." Emily set her coffee cup down so hard the spoon clattered. "We were invited. You saw the RSVPs. The kids' names were on the cards." Carol waved her hand dismissively. "Ava changed her mind." "Oh, she changed her mind after I paid for everything, right?" I said. Carol's face tightened. "Don't make this about money, Daniel. That's petty." That was the moment something inside me finally cracked. You know what's petty? Asking me to fund a wedding and then turning it into a circus. You both begged me to help. I handled every invoice, every booking. You didn't even thank me. And now you're standing in my house blaming me for her tantrum. She crossed her arms. "We're family. You're supposed to help without expecting recognition." "Helping doesn't mean being a doormat," I said. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I see. So that's how it is now. You're cutting us off." I leaned back in my chair. "If by cutting off, you mean I won't be financing any more nonsense, then yes. Consider it official." Carol went pale, like I'd slapped her. "You can't. Daniel, this family has always relied on you." "That's the problem," I interrupted quietly. "You rely on me, but you never respect me." There was silence. You could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. Finally, Carol muttered, "Ava's devastated. She lost her fiancé because of you. And when she picks herself up, she'll remember who turned her own family against her." I met her gaze, unblinking. If she thinks she lost her fiancé because I refused to lie for her, maybe she doesn't deserve him. Carol opened her mouth, but no words came out. After a moment, she just shook her head, turned around, and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. For a while, the house was quiet. Emily leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly. "You handled that better than I would have," she said softly. I rubbed my temples. "You think it's over?" "Knowing them," she said. "Not a chance." And she was right. Because that night, just as I was putting the kids to bed, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo, a picture of me at the venue, standing by the sign, looking stunned. Underneath, the caption read, "People will know who you really are." Ava's doing, no doubt. But what she didn't realize was that Mark's father had already called me again that evening. And what he said next changed everything. He wanted to meet, privately, to discuss something about the money. Something Ava and Carol clearly didn't know I was about to do. I met Mark's father the next afternoon at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. It was one of those old-fashioned places that still smelled faintly of roasted beans and wood polish, where conversations seemed to disappear into the hum of espresso machines. I walked in wearing a plain jacket, trying to keep things low-key. He was already there, a tall man with silver hair and a posture that radiated old-school dignity. His name was Richard, and when he stood to shake my hand, I could tell he wasn't the type to waste words. "Daniel," he said with a firm grip. "Thank you for coming." "Of course," I said, sitting down. "You mentioned something about the wedding money?" He nodded and took a sip of coffee before speaking. "I'll be direct with you. My son told me everything. About the sign, about what your stepsister did. He's deeply embarrassed, but he's also angry. Not at you." "That's a relief," I said dryly. Richard's mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. "He told me you covered most of the expenses. Venue, catering, the works?" I nodded. "Everything except the dress, as far as I know." He leaned forward. "Did they ever pay you back?" I shook my head. "It wasn't a loan. Carol said she couldn't afford much, and I didn't want her to feel pressured. I figured I'd take the loss and keep the peace." He tapped his fingers against the table thoughtfully. "Then you deserve to know something. Mark found some documents in Ava's wedding binder when he was packing his things. bank transfers, vendor receipts, invoices that were supposed to be under her name but were instead copied with your signature. My stomach tightened. Copied? He nodded. Forged. She used your name to secure a few last-minute upgrades. A second catering package, premium wine, and the string quartet, all billed directly under you. When the venue requested payment this morning, they sent the invoice to her address in your name. I stared at him, processing it. I'd agreed to pay for most of the wedding, but I'd already settled my share weeks ago. Anything she added afterward, that was on her. But now my name was on the hook. Richard leaned back. I thought you'd want to know before it got worse. I can help you sort this out, if you'd like. I nodded slowly, my mind already spinning. Thank you. I appreciate that. He looked at me for a long moment. You're a decent man, Daniel. You try to do the right thing. But people like your stepmother and her daughter, they see kindness as weakness. Mark's learning that the hard way too. I sighed. You're not wrong. When we parted ways, he shook my hand again and said, if you ever need help setting the record straight, you'll have my full support. The moment I got home, I went through my files, receipts, email threads, payment confirmations. Everything was in order on my end. I'd paid my portion directly to the vendors, with clear documentation. But the new charges Richard mentioned weren't there. Then I checked my inbox. And there it was, an email from the venue with the subject line. Final invoice, Daniel Harris wedding payment outstanding. It wasn't just the invoice. Attached was a scanned contract, my signature at the bottom, clean and crisp, except for one problem. I'd never signed that version. The date was changed, the numbers inflated, and my initials slightly off. Emily came into the room as I stared at the screen. What's wrong? I turned the laptop toward her. Apparently, I bought $12,000 worth of upgrades I never agreed to. Her jaw dropped. You're kidding. I wish. Do you think Ava? Yes, I said, cutting her off gently. She did. Emily folded her arms. You have proof? Not yet, but I will. And that's when I decided I was done playing the quiet, reasonable one. I printed out every legitimate receipt I had. Every message, every payment confirmation. Then I drove to the venue in person. The manager, a polite woman named Elise, met me in her office. I'm so sorry about the confusion, Mr. Harris, she said. The bride told us you'd be covering the additional costs. She told you. I repeated. Or she signed for me. Elise hesitated. She sent a revised document by email. We assumed it was you. The signature matched. Can I see that file? She hesitated again, then nodded and turned her monitor toward me. My signature stared back at me from the screen, perfectly replicated, except I spotted the difference immediately. The tail on the D in my name looped the wrong way. A tiny, subtle detail. Most people wouldn't notice. But I did. Elise, I said calmly, I didn't sign this. This is a forgery. Her eyes widened. Oh my goodness. Mr. Harris, I had no idea. I raised a hand. It's okay. I'm not blaming you. But I'll need a copy of everything she sent. She nodded, printing out the documents without question. I thanked her and left quietly, my pulse steady but my thoughts boiling. By the time I got home, it was past sunset. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the dishwasher. I sat at the kitchen table again, staring at the papers spread out before me. Forgery, fraud, humiliation, all because I tried to be generous. And just as I was putting the papers into a folder, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Ava herself. Mark's family is saying horrible things about me. You need to fix this. You're making me look like a criminal. I stared at the screen, almost laughing at the irony. I typed back, if you forged my name, that's not something I can fix. Her reply came within seconds. You wouldn't dare do anything. We're family. And that's when I realized she still didn't get it. She thought I'd stay silent, just like always. She thought family meant I'd let her walk over me again. But she didn't know that by morning, I'd be on the phone with my lawyer. And what she really didn't know was that I wasn't the only one who'd seen that sign at the wedding. Someone else had taken pictures and sent them to Mark's family group chat. That meant witnesses, evidence. And something tells me this story wasn't going to end with just embarrassment for Ava. Because when family burns bridges, they never expect the smoke to reach them. And in this case, I was ready to light a match. The next morning, I was at my lawyer's office by 9 sharp. Her name was Maya, sharp as a blade and calm as stone, the kind of lawyer who didn't just handle problems, but dismantled them. I laid the forged papers out on her desk, along with every receipt and message I had saved. She took her time reading through everything, occasionally underlining something or scribbling notes. When she finally looked up, she said, "This isn't just petty family drama anymore. This is fraud. And whoever sent this document in your name could be held liable for damages." I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't want to destroy anyone, Maya. I just want this to stop." Her expression softened slightly. "Sometimes the only way to make it stop is to hold them accountable." Over the next few days, she contacted the vendors and confirmed what I already suspected. Ava had been using my name as a blank check. Multiple upgrade orders were made under my supposed authorization. She even sent emails pretending to be me. My lawyer filed a report, not to press immediate charges, but to establish a legal record, a foundation, in case Ava tried to pull anything else. The funny part was, I didn't even have to expose her myself. The truth has a way of unraveling when people start trying to control the narrative. Mark, as it turned out, hadn't gone far. He was staying with his parents, trying to make sense of the chaos. One evening, I got another call from Richard. "You'll want to know," he said. "Ava came to our house this morning." "Oh, she wanted Mark back?" "Said she'd been set up. But she slipped up. Mentioned that she never thought you'd actually look at the invoices. She basically confessed." I exhaled slowly. "How did Mark take it?" Richard gave a quiet chuckle. He said he couldn't marry someone who humiliates children and commits forgery in the same week. I didn't have a response to that. Just silence. A few days later, Carol called me again. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice was quieter than usual. "Daniel, Ava's talking about suing you for defamation." I laughed, actually laughed. "Defamation? For what?" "Exposing her own behavior." Carol's tone trembled. "You don't understand. She's spiraling. She says you ruined her life." I paused. "Carol, she ruined her own life. I just stopped cleaning up after her." There was a long silence before she whispered, "You sound just like your father." That stopped me for a moment. "You say that like it's an insult." She sighed, tired and brittle. "He always thought everything could be solved by walking away. But families don't heal like that, Daniel." I thought about my kids, about Evan asking if he'd done something wrong, about Lucy clutching Emily's hand on the drive home. And I said, "No, Carol. They don't heal by walking away. They heal by not pretending the wound doesn't exist." After that, she didn't call again. Weeks passed. I heard bits and pieces from mutual acquaintances. Ava moved back in with Carol, the vendors started calling her directly for payment, and Mark had officially annulled the marriage contract. She'd lost most of her deposits, and Mark's family wasn't entertaining any reconciliation. Then one evening, as I was finishing dinner with Emily and the kids, the doorbell rang. It was Richard again, holding a manila folder. "I wanted to give you this personally," he said. "Mark and I settled the final vendor bills that were tied to your name. We handled the rest privately. You're in the clear." I blinked. "You didn't have to." He shook his head. "You did more for that girl than her own family did. Consider this our way of setting things right." I thanked him, genuinely touched. He gave me a firm nod before leaving, and that was that. For a long time, I thought that was where it ended. But life has a strange way of looping back to unfinished business. 3 months later, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from Carol. Inside was a photo. The same vineyard, the same venue, except empty. The handwritten note said, "You were right. We needed to see who she really was." Below that, another line, shaky and small. "Thank you for leaving when you did." I never responded. Some things don't need words. Nowadays, when I think about that wedding, I don't remember the humiliation or the betrayal. I remember the moment I chose silence over shouting. Walking away with my kids' hands in mine, calm and deliberate, while everyone else lost control. Because that day, Ava taught me something she'll never understand. Revenge doesn't always look like fire. Sometimes it looks like peace, like quietly letting someone burn their own bridge while you watch from solid ground. And that's exactly what I did.